Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today with a special guest, and we feel this is a very important show. We got Kirk Uhler, who's a Placer County Supervisor, and I got to tell you, this guy is a great friend of ours, and you're going to be hearing a little bit of his story and what's been happening up here with this COVID crisis on Honor Radio. Kurt, I want to tell you, buddy, it is an honor to have you on this show, my friend.
Well, thank you.
I want people to really get to know you. And, you've been a great friend to the Honor Group nonprofit. You've been with us through the beginning of the development of the Honor Bowl. We have a thing that we do here in your district, District 4, called the Yellow Ribbon campaign that we do down a major portion of Roseville and Granite Bay, where we hang yellow ribbons on every tree. You've been out there in the early mornings. Your wife has been out there in the early mornings helping us do that almost every year. You have an amazing nonprofit out there called Up Pageantry, which is, I'll let you talk about it, Kirk. I want to properly introduce you, where you raise up young women. You raise up young women. I've been a judge of this, the Miss Placer County pageant. I learned so much about what you and your wife and your family do to raise up young women. Buddy, I can't say enough of how honored we are to have you on this show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to come and chat with you and folks who tune in your podcast. It's great. Thank you.
So, Kurt, we're going to get into what's been happening with the COVID crisis and what you've been doing with the Placer County Supervisor and what's been happening here in Placer County as your role as a supervisor of District 4. But, buddy, tell us a little bit about your family. Tell us a little bit about the Miss Placer County pageant. Tell us about your work that you do with that.
All right. Well, a number of years ago, my wife started a nonprofit, 501c3, with a passion for helping young ladies develop confidence, mature into community-oriented young women who understand the importance of being engaged in their community, working with local electeds and other nonprofits. An awful lot of the time that we spend through a pageantry that Tammy has with her girls, we spend working with other nonprofits, helping them fulfill their missions. So whether it's Kids First or any of a whole host of other Placer County nonprofit organizations that are in the business of or that are committed to helping the underserved in Placer County, that's what the girls who come through a pageantry get introduced to. Yes, the night of the pageant is about you being on stage and being in the public eye, but we want to develop young women who are committed to something beyond people looking at them. We want them looking at their community, trying to figure out how they can engage with their community to make it a better place. So we have been, Tammy's organization, Up Pageantry, was selected by the Placer County Fair to run the Miss Placer County pageant, which has been around since 1937. And so for the last five or 6 years, we've run the Miss Placer County pageant there at the Placer County Fair. And just has been an incredible experience for us. Tammy grew up as a pageant contestant. She went to Miss Teen California. My daughter was Miss Teen Idaho in the USA line, which is the pageant line that Donald Trump owned and operated for a while. He then sold it to William Morris. And so my daughter had the opportunity a couple of years ago to go compete in Shreveport, Louisiana for the Miss USA, Teen USA title.
Wow.
Unfortunately, didn't win it, but we had a great experience. And my daughter, I look at my daughter and how incredibly beautiful and confident she is. We have an awful lot of beautiful people around us, but the confidence is really what I think makes people beautiful. Even ugly guys like me can be seen as in a better light just if we're confident what we believe in, and we're able to express our convictions convincingly to folks. And so that's really what we try to emphasize in a pageantry: is get engaged, get passionate, and be able to explain yourself.
Free five! Get up! Free five! Get up!
You got to get some, my friend. I got to tell you, I was able to be a judge one year. You guys invited me, asked me to be a judge on there of this panel of, I don't know, 5 or 6 of us. And I was blown away at the young ladies that were involved with this, their intellect, the way that they held themselves, their poise. We got to ask them interview questions where like they were, being interviewed for a job, and in a high pressure situation where they were sitting in front of a panel and having to ask questions like they were being interviewed.
Yeah.
I was blown away at the quality of these young women. And I got to tell you, ever since then, I have been a major fan of what you do to raise up young women in our community, and to see, your daughter rise up to where she's been and it's been going. I got to tell you, buddy, it's been extremely impressive. So kudos on your work that you do with the young ladies here.
Well, my job is easy. Tammy's the one who puts in all the time and effort. I have the opportunity to help coach these girls. And that's really one of the big differences between the pageants that Tammy puts on and so many other pageants. So many other pageants, these girls will show up for a rehearsal and then they do the pageant. Whereas we literally, as you know, we spend hours working with these girls on their public speaking skills, on their interview skills, on all those things, because we want the girls who come through the pageantry experience, we want them to have a great experience on stage and off stage, and know that they leave that opportunity to compete in the Miss Placer County pageant. Even if they don't leave with the title, they leave as a better person than when they showed up.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well, I got to tell you, the girls have been to our honor bowl events. They help us work the honor bowl events.
Yeah.
They
love your event.
Oh my God, it's amazing. We love when the ladies are there every year. They help us hang ribbons. You do a great job, you and Tammy.
Thank you.
Kudos to that. So
Thank you.
I'm going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of what we really want to talk about here today too, my friend. I wanted people to get an idea of who you are as a person, but tell us a little bit more about what you do with Placer County. What is your role when it comes to District 4? Give us a foundation behind that.
Sure. Well, in California, anyway, California is divided into 58 counties. And as counties, we are essentially creations of the state. Cities are creations of the people, but counties are creations of the state. The lines were drawn by the state when the state was established. And so as creations of the state, we're essentially agencies of the state. And so we at the county level are responsible for providing health and human services, welfare services, child support services. We provide, obviously, the county sheriff in the unincorporated area, where cities provide police within the incorporated cities. But then, let's say a city police officer arrests somebody. They're taken typically to a county jail where they are held until they go to the county superior court, where they are prosecuted by a county district attorney and they're defended by a county hired public defender. So, and then if they are convicted, they're convicted typically to a county jail until they are released under the supervision of county probation. So all facets of public protection are county responsibilities. And then you have, of course, the other things that folks know about, all of our public works. We have parks, we have our roads, we have sewer districts. So all those other services. And then, of course, the County Board of Supervisors sits as the land use planning authority for the unincorporated parts of a county. Mm-hmm. So those are, it's a multifaceted job. You got to be up on an awful lot of things. And of course, in this crazy state, where every year the legislature introduces 2,000 new bills, because we need 2,000 new laws, 2,000 new bills, and upwards of 300 to 600 of those will be passed and chaptered. You're constantly having to change. You're always working in a changing environment, because not only are we a service provider and have to provide the kinds of services I just described, but we're also a major employer. So we have to react as a major employer to all the changes in employment law and HR things and all that. So it's been an interesting 18 years, I can tell you that.
So let me tell people a little bit more about Placer County. It's on the northeast side of Sacramento. It has cities like Roseville, Auburn, Lincoln, Rockland, major cities, major growing cities. It's one of the most rapidly growing counties in California. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's got foothills. It's got lakes, scenic mountains. It runs all the way up to the border of Nevada and has North Lake Tahoe. So we're not talking a small county. How many people in it altogether, Kurt?
We're just at about 400,000 people in the county now.
400,000 people. So it's a big county that incorporates just a beautiful area of California. Now we've been really impacted by what's been going on with this COVID crisis. It's been very difficult. It's been on all the counties of California. It's been extremely stressful, and you've been vocal, my friend. You've been vocal with your passion to wanting to reopen the county. You've done several videos. You did one video last week that was in response to a SACB editorial that came out that had over 70,000 views. I mean, we're talking, it went viral. And then you did a video yesterday that had over 140,000 views. So you have really become a voice in this county, my friend, and the state of California. And a lot of people are listening, my friend. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you've been going through the last few days.
Well, Coach, this is really in response to the fact that I'm somebody who fundamentally believes that words matter, definitions matter, and laws should matter. And a big part of my frustration is that we in the state of California, we have state laws that govern this emergency situation. And one of the biggest frustrations I have is that the governor has decided that rather than obeying state law, and in these videos you referenced, and I have it here if you wanted me to get into the details of chapter and verse of what the laws are, rather than obeying the state law, our governor has just decided he's going to let this state of emergency that was declared back in early March, he's just going to let this drag on. Well, that's not what state law says. State law clearly says that the governor shall, it says, I mean, it's not a recommendation. The governor shall proclaim the termination of a state of emergency at the earliest possible date that conditions warrant. Well, we went into this state of emergency back in early March because we were listening to projections at the federal level of over 2 million Americans dead, and here in California, hundreds of thousands of Californians dead, and what that might mean for us as a county of 400,000 people. And, obviously it's tragic. It's a shame that we in Placer County have lost 8 people. But we went into this lockdown. People abandoned their businesses and schools shut down and kids lost their education opportunities for fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. Well, the unknown didn't materialize. Right. As we talk today, we have a grand total of nine people in Placer County hospitals. Just the South County hospitals can accommodate 668 people in staffed beds. We've got 9 people. We are not in a state of emergency by definition. And so all I've been saying all along is, hey, we should celebrate the fact that we're not in a state of emergency.
Yes.
We should celebrate the fact that this was not anywhere near as bad. And let's get out of this state of emergency and let's let people resume building their life, rebuild or start rebuilding and resume their lives.
Do you believe the governor is acting out of his authority?
I do, without question. I mean, by definition within state law, you look at the governor's own declaration. The governor cites in his declaration, as he should, he says, in particular government code section 8625, he hereby proclaims. Well, 8625 is very clear, Coach. 8625 requires that two findings must be made. Finding number one, he finds that circumstances described in Government Code Section 8558 subdivision B exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll read that real quick. So we have to first make this finding, okay?
Yeah.
And really quickly, what that says is that a state of emergency can be declared when a whole bunch of things might happen, one of which is an epidemic, which by reason of their magnitude are or are likely to be beyond the control of the services, personnel, equipment, and facilities of any single county, city, and county, or city. Well, back in early March, the key provision was are or are likely to be. And we as a Board of Supervisors said, yeah, we agree. We are likely, based on everything we're hearing, we are likely to meet that criteria. So we adopted the state of emergency in our county. So that's finding number one that must be made. Finding number two that must be made. He finds that local authority is inadequate to cope with the emergency. Coach.
Yeah, how does that make sense?
Less than 2 digits worth of cases in our hospital.
Yes.
In hospital capacity of 668 staff beds, we can cope with it. So that condition is not being met. So state law is very clear. The governor shall proclaim the termination of state emergency at the earliest possible date. We're there.
Yes.
But this governor, for some reason, is insistent on keeping us in this state of emergency. I have my thoughts as to why, but...
Why?
Well, because he continues to issue executive orders that would be illegal under any other condition. Mm-hmm. He's on almost a daily basis. He's creating law unilaterally. The legislature is playing no role in creating laws in California. The governor is doing it unilaterally in taking advantage of this opportunity, which allows him to do it. See, a state of emergency, this entire government code section, it's Article 13, state of emergency. It goes through the first section is the section I read to you, which identifies what are the conditions that must exist. Mm-hmm. The last section says the governor shall proclaim the termination of the state as early as possible. And in between those two is a page and a half worth of special powers that are transferred to the governor during a state of emergency. Powers that the governor doesn't have if we're not in a state of emergency. We're not in a state of emergency. Now, certain localities, yeah, you might be able to say Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
But we have a provision for that in the government code section. The same government code section that defines a state of emergency immediately below says local emergency, means the duly proclaimed existence of conditions of disaster or of extreme peril to the safety of persons or property within the territorial limits of a county, or city. That's what we've got right now. We have some jurisdictions that are experiencing local emergencies. But as of yesterday, over half of the counties in the state of California haven't had a death in 2 weeks.
It just doesn't make any sense, my friend. No sense whatsoever. Do you believe that this is political?
Well, clearly, there is a political element to it. I think the very fact that the governor is continuing the state of emergency, the fact that I got an interesting letter from his director of Office of Emergency Services.
Don't tell me about that. Tell me about the letter. People need to know more about. Basically, it was a threat.
Oh, it's an out-and-out threat.
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize. I left a piece of paper right over there. I'm going to disappear for a second. Like that piece of paper.
Okay, my friend.
All right, so I'm back. This all started when I took a resolution to our Board of Supervisors a week ago yesterday.
Mhm.
So on May 5th, I took a resolution to the Board of Supervisors that called upon the governor to recognize that we are no longer in a state of emergency, declare an end to the state of emergency. Our board passed it unanimously, and on Wednesday, it was sent to the governor. And I followed up on that resolution with an email that I sent to the governor and Attorney General Javier Becerra. And essentially, I just wrote respectfully, Dear Governor Newsom, by what authority do you control how counties move forward? Your current state of emergency declaration must be rescinded because the conditions required for a state of emergency no longer exist. State law is clear. And then it goes into that definition. State law only allows for a state of emergency when specific conditions exist, one of which is that conditions are beyond the control of the services of the county. Clearly, with only 8 deaths and 10 people hospitalized, Placer County is well in control of our ability to respond. And then I call upon Javier Becerra, Attorney General, to step in and enforce state law before counties have to waste precious taxpayer dollars in costly litigation. So I sent that to the governor's office on Wednesday. Well, I didn't get a response from the governor. I didn't get a response from the Attorney General, but I did get a response, an interesting one, from the director of the Office of Emergency Services. I have trouble with his last name. I apologize. Ghilarducci, I believe, Mark Ghilarducci, wrote me a page and a half letter, which he went to the trouble of getting 7. These are the footnotes to his letter, 7 footnotes in a page and a half letter, where he went and did the research, or somebody who works for him did, where they identified the actions that our board took to proclaim the state of emergency. And he's saying, how dare you question whether or not we're in a state of emergency? And actually bolded this sentence. If you can see this, I'll come in close. That one sentence that's bolded right there, he wanted to make sure that I remembered that I voted to ratify both of the proclamations on March 9th, declaring the state of emergency. Yeah, March 9th.
Right.
9th. Today is May 13th.
3-5.
There's another get some.
Has anything changed in the last 2 months? Has our understanding of this disease changed? Have the projections changed? Has anything? I would submit everything's changed in the last 2 months.
Yes.
So anyway, he then went on, and this is the interesting part. This is kind of the money quote right here. He wrote, I caution you, Mark talking to me, I caution you that improvident rhetoric in your missive may jeopardize your county's access to disaster relief and other funding meant to mitigate the effects of emergencies.
That's a threat.
So what he's telling me is because I, number one, as a citizen, number two, as an elected official, because I redress grievances with the governor of the United States and the governor of California and the Attorney General of California, I place my citizens in jeopardy of losing funding. Now understand, Coach, the funds that the state sends to localities, particularly counties, are largely a mixture and mostly, in a lot of cases, mostly federal funds. So he's threatening, as the director of the Office of Emergency Services, to withhold funds to Placer County, which were directed to the state of California by the federal government.
Interesting.
It's a tenuous position for somebody to be in.
And interesting, my friend. So do you believe that letter and the vocal way that you've been is one of the reasons why Placer County has been somewhat allowed to get through the stage 2 process? Do you believe that might have helped, or what do you think regarding that? And what does it mean to be?
Okay, so Placer is, there was, I want to say 7 counties that have been allowed the opportunity to quote unquote accelerate through phase 2, which means that we have our businesses that are retail shops, restaurants, can reopen under certain guidelines. And while do I think that some of this air cover that I provided helped the process? Yes, I do. But I got to give credit, and you'll appreciate this. You got to give the credit. The win goes to the ground troops. Mm-hmm. It's always the people on the ground who are the ones who are slugging it out and ultimately claim property, right? You can provide all the air cover you want. But we
are talking about the protesters and all that of them.
I want to really, actually, it's our Office of Emergency Services who's been phenomenal. Our economic development folks working with our business community. We went out early on and started working with our business community sector by sector: manufacturing, retail, lodging, restaurants, service industries. We went sector by sector, started working with our businesses to say, okay, guys, what are the best practices that we all agree we should employ when it comes time to open up? And we put those together in guidelines that we would then submitted to the state and showed them. These are all the things we're doing. These are what our businesses are saying we want to move forward and do. And so we were just really well positioned to be able to do this. Now, my frustration is that we're having to play these reindeer games in the first place, because I believe that we shouldn't be under a state of emergency. But while we do, I believe it is in the best interest of our businesses to do whatever we can to move forward within this structure while we continue to fight against the structure.
Sure. You know, I don't think people understand when it comes to a county, when businesses are shut down, when hospitals are are not at capacity, when things are happening within a county, that's all tax money that is not funding the county, right? So, I mean, in the long run, not now, but years from now, this has serious repercussions on the county.
You're absolutely right, Coach. And this, you know, I was a county supervisor when we went through the burst of the housing bubble, and we saw assessed valuations just plummet. And for cities, when something like this happens, especially with this kind of an economic shutdown of businesses overnight, for cities, the impact is almost immediate, because cities are predominantly sales tax dependent, okay? Counties, predominantly property tax dependent. And when you just shut off the spigot of sales tax, cities are getting hammered right now. For us in the county, we're a lagging indicator. So what's going to happen with this is you have a business park or a retail, let's take a retail complex, right? That has restaurants and the shoe store and all those other things in the retail park, and those businesses all get shut down. Well, how many of those businesses ultimately don't reopen? And if those that do reopen, how many of them are going to be paying a reduced rent? Mm-hmm. Well, then that property owner all of a sudden is going to the county to say, my valuation that you're taxing me at is no longer valid, because I'm now 60% vacant. And of those people who are paying rent, they're paying half the rent. And so you have to reduce my property tax bill. And by law, we have to reduce their property tax bill if they can make that kind of a case. And so this is what we saw during the housing crisis. And of course, then it was led by housing. This time, we're going to see a dramatic reduction in our property tax revenue, unfortunately led by the commercial sector, which is getting hammered first. That, of course, will flow through to the housing sector, because, you know, realtors are losing deals right now because deals that were in escrow, people got laid off, or they're uncertain about their future, so people canceled escrows. A lot of people walked away from deposits, just not knowing if they were going to be able to fulfill. So we're going to see it in the residential sector, but I think it's going to be more immediate in the commercial sector.
It's absolutely crazy. I wanted people to hear that from you, because so many people don't understand the snowball effect that is occurring with this, right? And how, you know, cities, they're impacted now, but when it comes to the counties, this could be years later and seriously impact things like, you know, police, fire, all of this other stuff that the governor went and asked for another, or is asking for another $1 trillion claiming that he needs to support that type of infrastructure. But I'm wondering how much is actually going to get to Placer County and all the other counties that are going to need that. It's a crazy world we're living in. I hear a lot about this new normal, my friend. What do you think about that? Do you think there's going to be a new normal?
Every time I hear people talking about the new normal, and unfortunately, typically it's coming from our governor, it's in the vein of a new acceptance of this top-down command and control consolidation of power at the state level. They are always talking about a new normal in the standpoint of what we as individual citizens are going to have to accept in terms of surrendering liberties. And that's why I'm in the fight. Because, Coach, my hope through all this is when it comes this November and elections in the future, and I'm saying this, I'm not on the ballot. But in this election coming up, whether it's for city council, county board of supervisors, state assembly, state senate, United States House of Representatives, we don't have a senator on the ballot this time, or president of the United States, I want people to evaluate their candidates. You're either in one of two camps. You're in the camp that took advantage of this opportunity to consolidate as much power as possible, and you fought like hell against relinquishing that power. Or you were in the camp that said, for the good of all of us, we agree to temporarily give up some of our liberties while we get this under control. And then you fought like hell to get those liberties back.
Free five! Get up! Free five! Get up! Free five! Get up!
The Marines like that. The Marines like
those are the guys. I mean, those are the guys who are fighting like hell for our liberties in the first place. Yeah. And here we are surrendering them.
Yeah. Kirk, I got to tell you, man, you said something on an interview that I heard recently about this not being a loss of life problem. We're having a loss of livelihood problem. If you could just summarize what you mean by that.
Well, in Placer County, a county of about 400,000 people, we've lost 8 people. And I'm sorry that we lost 8 people. The fact of the matter is that those 8 people that we lost, all of them had some other kind of condition with which they were suffering. Not to say that without the existence of this disease, they wouldn't still be alive today. But we did lose 8 people, and that is tragic. But that's 2 people per 100,000 residents in our county. Meanwhile, we've lost over 7,500 jobs per 100,000 residents in this county. So 2 lives, the loss of 7,500 livelihoods. The argument against reopening our counties at this point, people are saying, well, if we push to reopen, we could lose more lives. And yes, that's true, we could. If we don't reopen, it's a certainty we will see the devastation of more lives from the economic standpoint than from the disease.
Kirk Uhler, once again, I'm honored that you came on this show. Rick and I, when we started this, was all about getting the word out from passionate community leaders like you, right? To introduce people like you to our sphere of influence. And we've had some great people on over the last year. But I got to tell you, buddy, it is an honor to know you. It is an honor to know your family. I'd love to see you run for governor, my friend. And I know you're hearing that from a lot of people, but I just love your passion. I love your community spirit, your sense for freedom and patriotism. And I think that we need more leaders that have that type of heart. And so from the bottom of my heart, buddy, I just want to thank you for sharing a little bit about what fighting for Placer County, how we're trying to get this thing reopened, right? So we can get back to normal and with the freedoms that we're used to having. Amen, brother?
Amen, Coach. And I just want to, number one, thank you for the opportunity to come on here and chat with you today. It's always a pleasure to get a little FaceTime with Coach. But I also, your commitment to the community and to, well, to the entire armed forces in general, through the honorable and everything, and your own family's sacrifice with your boys. You're an inspiration. So thank you very much for what you do.
God bless you, Kirk. Hey, man, we hope to have you back on after we get out the back end of this thing and we got our liberties back, because we're going to be fighting for them, my friend. We hope to have you back on, man. But so God bless you, my friend, and we'll see you hopefully back in a couple of months, okay?
Sounds great, Coach.
Keep fighting, Kirk. Keep fighting, buddy.
Always.
Okay, guys, this is Honor Radio, and we'll see you on the next episode next week. God bless and have a great day.